It was early summer in Seattle. It's one of those calm weeks when the sunlight poured through every window and life felt quietly predictable. Claire Morgan had gotten used to this kind of calm. At 46, her life moved in simple circles: work, errands, dinner, sleep. She had raised her son, Ethan, mostly alone after her husband, Mark, had taken a job overseas that never quite brought him back. The two still spoke, but years of distance had turned love into polite conversation. Claire didn't resent it anymore. She had just accepted that some people fade slowly, even when they're still married. Her son, Ethan, now 21, is coming home for the summer from his university in Oregon. Claire had cleaned the entire house for his arrival, folded fresh sheets, and cooked his favorite meal. When she heard his car pull into the driveway, her heart lifted. He was her one constant joy, a reminder that all her sacrifices had meant something. Ethan came in laughing, arms full of bags, and behind him were two of his college friends. One of them, a tall young man with sandy hair and calm blue eyes, stepped forward with a polite smile. "Hi, Mrs. Morgan. I'm Tyler," he said, shaking her hand. His grip was gentle but confident. Claire smiled, welcoming them all inside, noticing how polite he was compared to most of Ethan's friends. He had that rare kind of presence, quiet but warm. Dinner that evening was lively. The boys talked about college life, professors they disliked, weekend road trips, and half-cooked meals in their dorm kitchen. Claire laughed more than she had in weeks. Tyler, unlike the others, asked her questions too about her job or cooking, even the books on the living room shelf. She didn't think much of it at first, but there was a sincerity in his tone that made her feel unexpectedly seen. It wasn't flirtation. It was attention, genuine, careful attention. Something she hadn't felt in years, after everyone went to bed. Claire stood by the kitchen sink, rinsing the last of the dishes. She could still hear the faint laughter from upstairs. For a brief moment, she thought about how different things felt with Ethan home. The house had energy again. But then she caught herself thinking about Tyler's eyes, the way he listened when she spoke. She pushed the thought away, almost embarrassed. "He's just a polite boy," she told herself, shaking her head with a smile. The next morning she woke early to prepare breakfast. She liked the quiet of early mornings, the smell of coffee, the hum of the refrigerator, the light slowly filling the kitchen. As she poured coffee into mugs, she heard footsteps behind her. When she turned, it was Tyler. He looked a little tired but smiled as he said, "Morning, Mrs. Morgan. You're up early." "So are you," she replied, handing him a mug. "You can call me Claire. Mrs. Morgan makes me sound too old." He chuckled softly. "Okay, Claire. Thanks for the coffee." They sat down for a few minutes, the quiet between them comfortable. Tyler told her he was studying architecture but wasn't sure if it was truly his passion. Claire listened carefully, offering small bits of advice the way mothers do when they want to encourage without interfering. He mentioned his own mother, how she passed away when he was a teenager, and Claire saw a flicker of pain in his eyes that she instantly recognized. She had seen that look in Ethan once, years ago, when he missed his father's presence. Something softened inside her. Maybe that was what drew her, not attraction, but empathy. Tyler wasn't just another young man. He carried a kind of quiet loneliness she understood all too well. As the weekend went on, they all spent more time together. Ethan and his friends played basketball in the backyard, grilled food, and stayed up late watching movies. Tyler was respectful and kind, helping Claire with small chores without being asked. One afternoon, when Ethan ran an errand, Tyler stayed behind to help her fix a loose cabinet door. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I don't mind," he replied, smiling as he crouched near the counter. "My dad used to fix things around the house. I like doing it. Feels like home." Those words made her chest tighten. When he finished, she thanked him, and their hands brushed briefly. It was nothing an accident, but it made her step back slightly, her breath catching for a moment she couldn't explain. That night, after dinner, everyone sat on the porch, watching the rain begin to fall. Ethan went upstairs early, leaving his friends talking quietly. Tyler sat beside Claire, the glow from the porch light reflecting softly in his eyes. "You have a beautiful home," he said. "It feels peaceful." She smiled faintly. It's quiet most of the time. Maybe too quiet. Tyler glanced at her, his voice soft. Sometimes quiet can be lonely. She looked at him for a moment, wondering how he always seemed to say the exact thing she was thinking. Maybe, she said finally, turning her gaze back to the rain. But you get used to it. He nodded, but she could feel his eyes linger on her just a moment longer before he excused himself to go upstairs. Claire sat there for a long time after, the sound of rain filling the silence he left behind. The next morning, Ethan and one of his other friends decided to drive into town. But Tyler stayed home, saying he wanted to catch up on some reading. Claire didn't think much of it until she found herself cleaning the living room more carefully than usual, as if preparing for something she didn't want to admit. When she passed the hallway, she saw Tyler sitting by the window with a notebook open on his lap. He looked focused, peaceful. For a moment, she just watched him, the sunlight falling across his face, the calm in his expression. Then she quickly turned away, scolding herself silently. "You're imagining things." "Stop it." Around noon, she brought him a cup of tea. "You didn't have to," he said, smiling gratefully. "I wanted to," she replied. Echoing the words she'd used before, they talked again. This time about small things, music, movies, and family memories. Claire realized how easy it was to talk to him. He listened, laughed at her jokes, and never made her feel like just someone's mother. Then, expectedly, Tyler said, "You remind me a lot of my mom. She used to listen like that, really listen." His voice softened at the end, and for a second, his eyes looked glassy with emotion. Claire reached out instinctively and touched his arm. "I'm sure she'd be proud of you." He looked up at her, his voice quiet but firm. "She would have liked you." Something about that moment stayed with her all day. It wasn't romantic. It was emotional, a connection built on kindness and shared loneliness. But underneath it, there was something Claire couldn't name. A quiet current that felt both comforting and dangerous. When Ethan and the others returned later that evening, Claire felt oddly relieved. The house was full again, the air lighter. She needed that. She needed the noise, the laughter, the distraction. But as she lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about Tyler's words. About the way he looked at her, not as someone older or distant, but as someone who mattered. It had been so long since anyone made her feel like that, not special, just seen. She told herself that was all it was. Just human connection. Nothing more yet. Deep inside, she sensed that something had shifted quietly, invisibly, and her summer would never be the same again. The next morning, Claire woke up to sunlight filtering through the curtains, the soft hum of the city outside. The previous day's events lingered in her mind. Tyler's presence had left a quiet impression on her, one that she didn't fully understand yet. She shook off the thought, reminding herself that he was Ethan's friend. A young man just beginning adulthood, and she was, well, just his friend's mom. That was all. Breakfast was loud and cheerful. Ethan and his friends joked about sleeping through alarms and missing classes, while Claire laughed and poured coffee. Tyler, unusually quiet for a Saturday morning, sipped his coffee slowly, glancing occasionally out the window as if lost in thought. Claire noticed, and a flicker of curiosity sparked. What was he thinking about? After breakfast, Ethan suggested they all go to the local farmer's market. Tyler hesitated but eventually agreed. Claire decided to go along, thinking it would be fun and a chance to stretch her legs. The morning air was warm, with a faint breeze that carried the smell of fresh bread and flowers from the market stalls. Crowds moved around them, the sound of chatter and laughter blending into a comforting background hum as they walked. Claire noticed that Tyler kept glancing at her, though subtly. She felt a strange flutter in her chest, one she quickly dismissed. They stopped at a stall selling fresh berries. Tyler offered to help carry the basket, and she accepted. Their hands brushed lightly, and she felt warmth spread through her fingers. It was innocent, a touch of kindness, but it made her heart skip a beat at the next stall. Tyler started a conversation with Claire about her childhood garden, asking how she grew certain vegetables. She found herself telling stories she hadn't shared in years. How her mother taught her to plant tomatoes, and how she'd once tried to grow sunflowers that ended up leaning toward the wrong direction. Tyler listened intently, nodding, asking questions, and laughing at the right moments. Claire realized that she had never met anyone so genuinely interested in her experiences. Later, they stopped for lemonade. Ethan and his friends wandered off to look at a nearby art booth, leaving Claire and Tyler alone for a moment. She glanced at him and realized how much she had enjoyed his company over the past 24 hours. There was a connection forming, quiet, tender, and unexpected. "You know," Tyler said softly, "I've never met someone like you, Claire. You make people feel at ease. Not just me, everyone. You have a way of listening that's rare." Claire smiled, a little embarrassed. "I'm just me," she replied, though her voice held a hint of warmth she hadn't expected. "You're more than that," he said, his gaze steady but kind. "I wish more people were like you." Her chest tightened slightly. She didn't know how to respond. It was flattering, and yet she was careful. Tyler was Ethan's friend. That line was important. But the sincerity in his words made it hard to maintain her usual reserve. The afternoon passed quickly. They returned home carrying bags of fresh vegetables and bread. Ethan and his friends scattered upstairs playing video games and joking loudly, while Claire started preparing a light lunch. Tyler offered to help, and she accepted, finding his presence comforting in the kitchen. They worked together, passing utensils, chopping vegetables, and talking quietly about everything from favorite books to travel plans. At one point, Tyler paused, looking at her with a thoughtful expression. "Claire," he said gently, "I know I'm supposed to just be your son's friend, but I feel like, I don't know, I can talk to you, and I want to." She froze for a moment. His honesty was disarming. "Tyler, you can always talk to me," she said softly. "But remember, I'm just here as your friend." "That's all," he nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I know, I just appreciate it. You make things feel less complicated." Claire felt a rush of emotion. There was a tenderness in the way he spoke, a quiet vulnerability she wanted to protect. She realized that over the weekend, she had come to rely on his presence more than she expected. Not in a romantic way, but in a way that reminded her she could still feel seen, do matter to someone outside her immediate family. Later that evening, the group decided to play a board game. Tyler sat next to Claire, and she felt a sense of ease she hadn't felt in years. The house was filled with laughter and playful competition. Claire noticed that Tyler's hand occasionally brushed against hers, but it was always innocent, a byproduct of sitting close. Yet the small touches sent shivers through her. A reminder that human connection could still be electric, even in the most subtle ways. After the game, Ethan went to the living room to check messages on his phone. Tyler stayed behind, looking at a photograph on the mantel, a picture of Claire and Ethan from years ago. He didn't speak immediately. "Do you miss your husband?" he asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Claire paused. It was a personal question, and she hadn't expected to answer it aloud. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But life moves on. You can't linger on what's gone." Tyler nodded. "I understand. I lost my mom when I was young. I know what it feels like to miss someone who was everything to you." The shared understanding between them created a bridge, a quiet bond that didn't need words. Claire realized that Tyler wasn't trying to cross any boundaries. He was simply someone who understood loss, longing, and the need to feel valued. That night, Claire went to bed with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't romantic desire, but something subtler. The excitement of being recognized, of feeling important to someone who genuinely cared. She thought about Tyler's eyes, the way he listened, and the quiet gratitude in his voice. The next morning, Tyler woke up before everyone else. Claire noticed him moving quietly in the kitchen, making himself coffee. She decided to join him, needing the calm presence after a night of reflection. "You're up early again," she said, smiling as she placed a mug beside him. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted. "It's peaceful here. Your house, your presence, it's calming." Claire felt a warmth spread through her chest. "I'm glad you feel that way," she replied, unsure why the comment affected her so deeply. They spent the morning talking quietly about small things. from local news to movies they wanted to see. The conversation flowed easily with laughter and thoughtful pauses. It was a kind of intimacy that didn't need labels, a connection built on respect, understanding, and shared moments. By afternoon, Ethan suggested a hike in the nearby hills. Tyler and the others agreed, but Claire chose to stay home, finishing some work and enjoying the quiet. She found herself reflecting on the past 2 days, realizing how much she had come to look forward to Tyler's company. It wasn't inappropriate. He was respectful, kind, and thoughtful, but it was stirring emotions she hadn't expected. As the day progressed, Claire noticed Tyler occasionally glancing her way. There was nothing bold in his eyes, only attentiveness, a quiet appreciation for her presence. She felt a mix of emotions, comfort, nostalgia, and a subtle thrill that reminded her she was alive, still capable of connection and care. When the group returned from their hike, tired but cheerful, Claire noticed a slight change in Tyler's demeanor. He seemed more relaxed, more confident, yet there was a quiet gravity in his expression when he looked at her. She realized that over the course of the weekend, a bond had formed, one that was emotional, deeply respectful, and entirely safe for the boundaries they needed to maintain. That evening, as the rain began to fall again, Claire and Tyler found themselves alone briefly in the living room. He looked at her, his voice soft but firm. "You've made this weekend memorable. I don't know how to explain it, but you've helped me feel seen." Claire felt a lump in her throat. "Tyler, you don't need to explain," she said. "Sometimes people just need to be acknowledged. That's all." They shared a quiet smile, understanding each other without words. There was no romantic promise, no inappropriate advance, only human connection, honesty, and shared vulnerability. It was rare, and Claire felt grateful for it. As she prepared for bed that night, she reflected on the weekend. Tyler's presence had reminded her that life could still surprise her, that human connection could appear in the most unexpected ways. It wasn't about desire. It was about recognition, kindness, and the gentle stirring of emotions that made her feel alive again. She knew the weekend was not over, and that more challenges, laughter, and quiet moments awaited. But she also understood that she had discovered something important, a bond built on trust, respect, and genuine care. And in that understanding, Claire realized that sometimes the most meaningful connections are the ones that come quietly, unexpectedly, and with no need for labels or promises. The final morning of the weekend dawned with soft sunlight spilling across the kitchen. Claire sat at the table, sipping her coffee slowly, listening to the quiet hum of the house. Ethan and the other boys were still asleep, leaving the space calm and reflective. Tyler, who had stayed up late the night before reading, now appeared in the doorway, stretching and smiling faintly. The easy comfort between them felt natural, unforced, and yet deeply meaningful. "Good morning," he said, quietly, almost as if he didn't want to disturb the peace. "Morning," Claire replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Did you sleep well?" He nodded, walking toward the counter to pour himself a cup of coffee. "Better than I expected. I've enjoyed this weekend more than I thought I would." Claire looked at him, her mind reflecting on the last 2 days, the quiet moments, the laughter, the conversations that seemed to stretch beyond time itself. It wasn't a romantic feeling, not in the usual sense, but a deep, warm connection that left her heart quietly full. She had never expected such an unexpected closeness to develop with someone so young, someone who was, technically, just her son's friend. "I'm glad," she said softly. "I think sometimes we all need a little pause, a chance to be seen without judgment." Tyler met her gaze, a softness in his eyes that spoke volumes. "You've done that for me," he said, his voice steady. "I don't know how to explain it, but I feel calmer, more understood. Not everyone gets that." Claire felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that the weekend had reminded her of something she had long forgotten: the power of being genuinely present for someone else. It wasn't about romance or desire. It was about empathy, kindness, and emotional honesty. And Tyler, with his quiet attentiveness and genuine nature, had brought that reminder into her life. The morning passed in easy companionship. They prepared breakfast together, chopping vegetables, brewing coffee, and sharing small anecdotes from childhood and school. Tyler laughed at her stories about clumsy gardening experiments and childhood mishaps, while Claire found herself smiling more than she had in months. The air between them was light yet meaningful, filled with subtle recognition and quiet understanding. By late morning, Ethan and his friends joined them for breakfast. Tyler's energy shifted slightly, the playful teasing and joking returning as the group dynamic reasserted itself. Claire observed them, grateful for the balance, the youthful exuberance of her son's friends alongside the calm, quiet moments she had shared with Tyler. It was a reminder that life could hold both excitement and serenity simultaneously. After breakfast, Tyler and Claire decided to take a short walk outside. Just the two of them, while the others packed up to leave. The neighborhood was quiet, a few neighbors tending their gardens, the sun warm but gentle. They walked side by side, speaking softly, sharing reflections from the weekend. "I didn't expect to connect with someone like this," Tyler admitted. "I thought this would be just another weekend at my friend's house, but it wasn't. You made it memorable." Claire smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment she hadn't realized she was missing. Sometimes the simplest moments matter the most. A conversation, a laugh, a shared experience, they leave a mark, even if it's quiet. Tyler nodded. "I know, and I'll remember this weekend. Not for the events, but for you. How you made me feel seen, understood." Claire felt a gentle tug of emotion. It was rare to meet someone so young and yet so emotionally mature. She realized that the weekend had been transformative for both of them. For her, it was a reminder that connection and empathy could arrive unexpectedly. And for him, it was a chance to experience genuine support and care as they returned home. The other boys were preparing to leave. Ethan ran up to hug his mom, chatting quickly about plans for the week. Tyler lingered for a moment, standing beside Claire. She could see the gratitude and quiet affection in his expression, the mutual respect and understanding that had formed over the weekend. "Thank you, Claire," he said softly, "for everything. For listening, for being patient, for making me feel like I mattered." Claire placed a hand on his shoulder gently, smiling. "You do matter, Tyler. You just needed to know it. And I'm glad you do." They shared a quiet, knowing look. Not a romantic gesture, but a profound acknowledgement of the bond that had grown between them. It was a connection built on trust, respect, and emotional honesty. The kind that could last a lifetime without requiring anything more as Tyler left. Claire felt a mixture of sadness and gratitude. She would miss his presence. But she also knew that the weekend had given both of them something lasting, the reassurance that kindness and attention could leave a lasting impression in the quiet house afterward. Claire reflected on the events. She realized that life could offer unexpected moments of clarity and connection. Moments that reminded her of her own capacity to care and to be present. She had been cautious at first, wary of crossing boundaries. But the weekend had shown her that deep connections didn't need to be complicated. They could exist purely in the realm of understanding and empathy. Over the next few days, Claire and Tyler exchanged messages, short notes of appreciation, sharing small joys from their daily lives. It wasn't excessive or overwhelming. It was the continuation of the quiet bond that had begun over shared meals, walks, and conversations. She felt comforted knowing that boundaries were respected, and that the emotional connection remained pure and wholesome. One evening, as she prepared dinner, she paused, remembering a line Tyler had said, "You made me feel seen." She realized that those words applied to her as well. Tyler had reminded her that even in adulthood, in the midst of life's complexities, it was possible to feel acknowledged, appreciated, and connected. It was a gentle reminder that human connection in any form was valuable. Weeks passed and life returned to its usual rhythm. Ethan and his friends continued their school activities, and Claire resumed her routines. Yet the memory of the weekend lingered quiet moments of laughter, meaningful conversation, and the unspoken understanding that had formed. Tyler had left a lasting impression, not because of any romantic involvement, but because of the rare and pure emotional connection that had blossomed. Claire found herself more open to appreciating small interactions, more attentive to moments of genuine connection with those around her. She realized that relationships didn't always need labels or expectations. Sometimes they were meaningful simply because of the attention, care, and respect shared between two people. One evening, as she sat by the window with a cup of tea, she smiled at the thought of Tyler. The weekend had been a reminder that life could surprise her in small, beautiful ways. A friend, a confidant, someone who saw her for who she truly was, that was a gift. And in that realization, Claire felt a sense of peace and contentment. The story of the weekend wasn't about desire, infidelity, or any inappropriate behavior. It was about human connection, empathy, and the transformative power of being truly seen and acknowledged. Claire and Tyler had shared moments that were emotional, meaningful, and safe experiences that had left them both quietly changed, with a deeper understanding of themselves and each other. In the end, Claire understood that the most profound bonds weren't always romantic or physical. They could exist in laughter, in conversation, and in the simple act of being present for another person. The weekend had shown her that she was capable of connection, that Tyler was capable of trust, and that life could offer unexpected moments of beauty and understanding. As she closed the book she had been reading and sipped her tea, Claire felt a quiet joy. The weekend had passed, but its lessons lingered. The importance of kindness, the power of empathy, and the quiet magic of human connection. She smiled softly, knowing that she had shared something rare and valuable, a true friendship, a meaningful bond, and a memory that would stay with her forever. And with that, Claire turned off the lights, feeling grateful for the weekend, for Tyler, and for the gentle reminder that life's most meaningful moments often come quietly, unexpectedly, and with no need for labels or promises.